Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting for the Lawrence City Council. Today is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. This meeting was supposed to start at 7 p.m., but due to the fact that all councilors and members of the administration and the entire community were part of the event that took place in honor of Carol Plass, we are here a little late. We apologize for that on that matters. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting will be hybrid, allowing participation both in person and in the City Council chambers, as well as remotely. The Zoom link for anybody that requested was submitted through email. Anybody that requested through the city clerk was received this link for the Zoom. And this meeting is both conducted through the Facebook Lawrence City Council page as well as the YouTube Lawrence City Council page. Madam Claire, roll call, please.
Councilor Levy is noted as absent. Councilor LaPlante?
Present.
Councilor Luzon is noted as absent. Councilor Del Rosario?
Present.
Councilor Fidelina Santiago is noted as absent. Councilor Marmol?
Present.
Councilor Selena Reyes is noted as absent. Council Vice President Infante?
Present.
Council President Rodriguez?
Present. Many of the councilors are coming in later on during the night, since we all together at that vigil. Please join me for a moment of silence in honor of Carol Plass, that a 37-year-old mother that passed away tragically. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no minutes to approve tonight, and we're going to pursue with public participation. We have two names that are signing for public participation. If there is anybody else that would like to sign in for public participation, we're going to have enough time. Please let us know. The rules for the public participations are as follows. Please refer to the council as a whole, not to any individual councilors. You're going to have 2.5 minutes to speak on any item, any topic. And at the 2-minute mark, you're going to hear a ring indicating that you still have 30 seconds. We're going to start public participation with H. Mali. Name and address for the record, please.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We, the citizen, thankful of this honorable council and honorable Mayor Brian DePena for making history by granting contract for Lawrence Police Officers Union. Lawrence Police, with the impeccable leadership by Honorable Chief Bonilla, doing excellent job to protect our citizens. We support Lawrence Police Officers Union, Seniors Officers Union. Million thanks to our DPW workers for making Lawrence a beautiful city. We support our DPW union and the leadership. Lawrence Inspection Department, thank you for excellent job. We support the Inspector Department union leadership. We must hire more inspectors. Lawrence Public School with impeccable leadership, Honorable Ralph Guerrero moving forward. Lawrence teachers, thank you for excellent job. We support Lawrence Teachers Union. We are grateful to Honorable Richard Rodriguez, ADA coordinator, to create the best accessible environment for our disabled citizens. Please bring food and donation every Wednesday to Buckley Garage to help our homeless. We demand the best contract for our awesome firefighters with 3% COLA raise and hazard pay. Lawrence always is strong. Lawrence always unite. Lawrence one city under God. We are proud to support Lawrence Police Union. Pray for the safety of all police officers endangering their life every day. Lawrence police officers, thank you for making Lawrence a safe city. We are united to support Lawrence Police Union and thank you for excellent job.
The next person that we have is Rich Russell. Is John there?
Good evening, councilors. I'm Richard Russell, 34 Cross Street, on the easterly boundary of District D3. First, I would like to thank the city for finally getting around to putting lane markings, directional arrows, and crosswalks on the newly paved road surfaces. It's a little disconcerting to see newly painted out various utility lines on the newly paved streets. Shouldn't all of this have been taken care of prior to repaving these streets? Now, the city could figure out how to prevent cars from traveling in the right-hand lane approaching Lowell Street and then all of a sudden cutting over to continue north on Broadway instead of making the proper turn onto Lowell Street. I'd be happy. When I got my license about 60 years ago, I was taught to obey traffic signs and lane markings. Next, I have heard through the grapevine that the Lawrence Police Department may have gunshot detectors, decibel meters, and license plate scanners. If they do, why aren't they being used to their fullest potential? A constant complaint heard at various neighborhood meetings is noise. Solving the noise complaint issue in Lawrence is a threefold problem. The Lawrence Police don't have enough personnel to properly enforce a noise ordinance. The City Council doesn't seem too eager to write a noise ordinance with a specific decibel limits in it. And finally, the third floor of this building seemed to have developed an attitude that let them eat cake about the noise. Last, how is the city coming and recreating the plaques for the Melendez, Stockton, and Toomey monuments where the honorees' names are supposed to be the most prominent on the plaque? Money was supposed to be forthcoming in the FY25 budget for this issue. It is also my understanding that the fountain that was buried at Five Corners was dedicated 50-plus years ago to South Lawrence Vietnam veterans. Why can't a monument and plaque be put on top of that mound that exists at that location commemorating that fact? As always, I thank you for the time.
Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak that didn't write the name on on the list? All right, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming. With that said, we're gonna close public participation, and all these names are gonna be submitted for the record. The next item on the agenda, public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight. And there is no communication from the mayor, city officials, or city attorney. Committee report, we're gonna go to the top of the agenda with the Budget and Finance Committee reports. Madam Claire, Vice President Infante, Budget and Finance for item 41124.
Thank you. Can I, through you, Council President, can I actually take something out of order?
Sure.
I would like to take item, it's under the Ordinance Committee. Item 403-24, the dedication of Officer Jacob E.C. Square It says Stevens Avenue area, but we changed it to the Corbett and Mount Vernon intersection. And it's sponsored by myself and Detective Tom Cuddy.
All right, I'm gonna go to the ordinance committee then and provide the opportunity for the chair of the ordinance to take this item out of order.
Thank you, Council President. So the ordinance committee met on this item. Document number 40324, dedication of the Officer Jacob A.C. Square. This was sent up to the full council with a favorable recommendation, and to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Before we continue, Madam Clerk, please call the roll for councilors that are here. Councilor Reyes and Councilor De Rosario. Councilor Luzon. Councilor Fidelina Santiago.
Councilor Santiago?
Present.
Councilor Reyes?
Present.
Councilor Luzon?
Present.
All right, you may continue.
Made a motion, I believe it was seconded.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table. Any discussions on item
Discussion.
403-24? Madam Vice President Infante.
Thank you. Just quickly, briefly, as we presented, myself and the Detective Cuddy, last week, was it, Councilor LaPlante? Or 2 weeks ago? Ordinance?
Recently.
Recently. Recently. Officer Jacob E.C. was unfortunately violently attacked while on duty as a Lawrence police officer, and this occurred on May 11th, 1993. And, well, it was a result of the injuries that he got from that attack. This petition has already gone through the city council before. It was actually an item from former Councilor Dave Abdu, which I actually got a chance to connect with prior to this meeting, and I informed him that this is something that we're moving forward with, and he's 100% on board. I invited him to be here tonight, but unfortunately he wasn't available, but he will be, if this is approved, he will be attending the dedication with us. We do know that this was filed through the State House with the assistance of State Representative Frank Moran, and it was signed to law by Governor Baker on July 13th, 2022. Officer E.C. was also, his name was also added to the National Law Enforcement Memorial on May 13th, 2023, and he was also added to the Massachusetts Law Enforcement Memorial on September 27th, 2023. And at this, I think I might have stolen Detective Cuddy's thunder here, but I would like a moment for Detective Cuddy to speak, and we also have Officer E.C.'s sisters here with us tonight. Daughters, I'm sorry. Daughters here today. And if they would like to say anything, I would like them to have an opportunity as well.
Good evening, councilors. Thomas Cuddy, Lawrence Police Department. As the council vice president noted, this was long overdue, and the folks, and many of you are here on the home rule petition, then this is long overdue. This council, the state legislature, and certainly the governor, really corrected a wrong that was done many years ago. Officer Easy gave his life for this city, responding to a domestic violence call on Crawford Street in the stadium projects. He was beaten by the suspect, and he never really regained any kind of quality of life, per se, after that, to his final passing in May of 1993. His 5 daughters, no father, living or dead, would have more dedicated children than his 5 daughters, 2 of whom are here. They were tenacious in getting their father the recognition they deserved, along with their mother. And, you know, like I said, at the ordinance committee level, Mrs. Easy is getting along in years, and we would like to get this done while she's still with us, so she can, it's kind of the final leg of this journey, you know, from the National Memorial. It was no easy task, and again, that really began in this chamber with this body, then signed by the mayor, and carried to to the State House, to Representative Moran, and then signed by the governor. Without your support, this would have never made it to the National Monument. By virtue of being on the National Monument, you are on the State Monument at the State House, right next to 1 Ashburton Place. And then this is like the Lawrence part of it. And as I said to you, part of the plans for the new police station is to move our memorial from the Bellevue Cemetery to the front of the police station, have a courtyard there. So more public can actually see it and really recognize Officer Easy and the 4 other individuals that are listed as in the line of duty deaths for the Lawrence Police Department. So again, I thank you for your support way back then, those of you that were on the council, and I thank the support of the council, Councilor Infante, certainly former Councilor Abdu, and all of you that really, you corrected a wrong that people that sat in this chamber did many, many years ago, and you all should be very, very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that said, any other comments from the councilors? I hear none, so at this point, I'll call the questions.
I got a question, just a quick question. Where's the site going to be through your council president? Which square is it going to be?
It's going to
It's
be.
Carvet Road,
Corbett and Mount Vernon?
Mount Vernon.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, councilors? All right, I'll call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. So now we're going back to the top of the agenda with item 411 from the Budget and Finance Committee. Madam Vice President Infante?
Council President, if I may, I was absent from that meeting, and the Vice Chair, Councilor Vivian Marmol, led that meeting, so I will defer to her.
Sure. Councilor District D, Vivian Marmol. Can you give us the report, please?
Item 41124, payment of prior year bills in the amount of $56,763.50 was approved by the Budget and Finance Committee with a favorable recommendation to be sent to the full council, and I submit that in the form of a motion.
There's a motion on the table. Can I hear a
Second.
second? Properly second discussion, councilors. There is no discussion at this point. I'll call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item, there is no Housing Committee reports. We're going to the top of the agenda with the Ordinance Committee. Mr. Councilor Plant, the Chair of the Budget of the Ordinance Committee, can you please give us the report for item 3824?
The Ordinance Committee met on item 3824, handicap parking at 49 Bradford Street, Apartment 1. This was sent up to the full council with a recommendation to order a public hearing and make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. Something to clarify from this item very quick. I don't know, I'm pretty sure that you guys discussed that, but just to clarify, handicap parkings are not for any specific place. I'm seeing that they mention a specific apartment. And I just want to make sure that we have it all for the record, that any handicap parking within the city of Lawrence are not designated to any specific person. Instead, are designated for the city as a whole. Whoever have a placard, they can park there at any time, any moment. There is a motion on the table to order public hearings. I hear a second. Any questions? All those in favor to order the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 12924, parking signs 50 minutes at 395 Lowell Street.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this item was sent up to the full council by the Ordinance Committee with a favorable recommendation to order a public hearing. The hours are between 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Make that in the form of a motion.
There's a motion on the table. Second. Properly second to order public hearings. Any questions? All right, at this point, I'll call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Item 14024. Mr. Chair from the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. 14024, stop sign on Woodland Street, corner of East Haverhill Street. And the stop sign is to be placed on Woodland Street. This was sent up to the full council with a favorable recommendation to order a public hearing and make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
There is a motion on the table. Properly second discussion. I hear none. All those in favor to order a public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 15324.
Thank you, Council President. So 15324, the Ordinance Committee sent this up to the full council with a favorable recommendation to order a public hearing, and that's a handicap parking, 17 Bedford Street, and make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
There is a motion on the table, properly second. Any questions? I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 278-24.
This is handicap parking at 337 Prospect Street. This was sent up by the ordinance committee with a favorable recommendation to order a public hearing, and that's a motion.
Second.
Discussion.
There's a motion on the table, properly second. Discussion, Councilor Fidelina Santiago.
It is my district, but I see, I went to this address and I saw in this address also. I went to this address and I saw they have a parking.
Handicap parking already?
No, they have a driveway.
A driveway, okay.
Yeah, and the ordinance say if they have.
It's up to discretion of the police department. We're gonna order the public hearing. Probably you should contact the police department to see what
Just to let you
was behind it. All right, but thank you for the information and thank you for going over there. It is important. This motion is to order a public hearing. Any other questions? I hear none, so at this point I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 279-24.
This item is document 279-24, no parking area on 6 Berkeley Street. This was sent up by the ordinance committee to this council with a favorable recommendation to order a public hearing, and that's a motion.
Second.
There is an item of, item 279-24, no parking area on 6 Berkeley Street. Properly second discussion. So, Councilor Luzon, just quick clarification on that. This no parking is just for 6 Berkeley Street or the entire street?
Council President, we are with Berkeley Street.
Yeah, item 279-24.
And I would like to ask Madam Clerk, I think it was not needed, because we sent something to DPW. We're confused.
I apologize. I thought I had a letter or a memo from the,
The councilor is correct. I'm reading the memo from
It's still withdrawn.
Mr. Cano.
It's still withdrawn.
And I'm withdrawing my motion because I'm reviewing this, and my motion now is to withdraw this item.
Second.
All right, motion to withdraw, properly second. Discussion, I hear no. All those in favor to withdraw, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 328-24. 328-24.
The ordinance committee met on this item, which is handicap parking on 14 and 16 Custer Street. It was sent up to the full council with a recommendation to order a public hearing, and to make that as a motion.
Second.
There is a motion on the table to order. There is a motion on the table to order a public hearing for a location 1416 Custer Street. Properly second. Discussion. I hear none. All those in favor to order the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Item 40124. Chair for the ordinance committee, Councilor Blunt.
Ordinance committee met on this item, which is the name of park located on Canal Street and at Oxford, the paper mill, now unofficially called Oxford Park as the Julia Silverio Park. And this was sent up to the full council with a favorable recommendation, and to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
There's a motion on the table, properly second. Discussion.
Discussion.
Discussion, Councilor LaPlante.
Thank you. It's not often that I have a chance to speak on behalf of somebody who I know, who I used to serve with on this council. I think was either sitting here or here back those years ago. And I know that that on her behalf, there are people who are in support of this, both family and friends who are here in eager support. My comments will be brief. I hope to save them for a ceremony. I'll be voting in favor of it. I just think it's important that I mentioned this at the ordinance committee meeting. I'll be very brief about this. When we make a decision as to who we're going to honor, it's a personal decision by this council. What one councilor thinks is meritorious or deserving may be completely different from another city council. We have no ordinances that are based on who gets what. And it runs the gamut. I feel, as I mentioned in the ordinance committee, I feel it's a little awkward for me to, because having seen the breadth of dedications throughout our city's history, that we have, unless it's an unusual circumstance, we have not provided some tribute like this until someone has passed. Now, I will grant you, most of the people have gotten it because they have passed in a war. They have died in service. And we just did one this just a little while ago for someone who died because of service-related injuries as a police officer. So I think, and I'll say this, I think that there's an opportunity for all of us, my calculus. If we want to honor someone while they're alive, we have ways to do that. We have resolutions, we have citations, the mayor does it. We do certain things that while someone, and if it's special, and if we just don't hand them out like candy, and if it's special, then that means something. It should mean something if all of us got together to support a resolution for someone. In this particular case, I know this thing is going to pass because I know of all the enduring love and support and admiration that Councilor Silverio has had through a body of work through her lifetime. And it's a body of work that I think will stand the test of time. I think people 20 or 30 years from now, when I'm going to suggest this, maybe all of us are not here anymore. I'm looking around. All of us aren't here anymore. We could look to this park and we could say something like, yeah, Julia Silverio was deserving of this park and the naming of this park because of the contributions that she made in this city, both through her various charitable organizations, through her business organizations, through her public civic organizations. I'm probably missing something, but her religious affiliations, she has because of, she's not 12, she's not 25, she has a body of work of a lifetime. And she's accomplished a lot. And to see her part of her family here today as well, I think is really her lasting legacy, more so than a park, because it's her values that she has passed on to her children and to her grandchildren, et cetera, that are really going to be the true testimony of who Julia Silverio is. So I'll stop there. I promise to keep this brief. I'll be supporting it this evening, so I encourage the rest of us to. But I ask all of us, as we continue to get these namings for parks and corners, to really stop and think. I've yet to be on the city council where one has been said no to. I've yet to be here. It's like if you put something on there, it's going to be yes, because nobody wants to offend anybody. At some point, we have to go on ourselves and say, yeah, that person doesn't quite merit, and have the ability to say, I like the person, they were a good person, but I can't say yes to this. Thank you. And I'm saying yes to this, by the way.
Councilor LaPlante, thank you for your comment. I guess Councilor LaPlante doesn't want anybody to break his record in the chamber as a councilor. It's like 19 years. You say in 30 years you don't want nobody to be here.
God willing, please, break the record.
All right, I would like to take this opportunity to open the floor to any family members, anybody that is supporting this item on the dedication of the unofficially called Oxford Park to Julia Silverio. So if anybody from the public that wishes to speak, this is the time to say so. So name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, councilors. Francisco Cirillo, Economic Development Director for the City of Lawrence. I will echo a lot of stuff that Councilor LaPlante has mentioned, but I will also be remiss if I didn't say that her work has inspired a lot of us that have come after her. First Latina, Dominican descent that became elected to the City of Lawrence, but also the United States. If you look at years later, my former colleague, your former colleague, Senator Payano became the first Dominican senator of Lawrence in the United States. And we have to start giving flowers to a lot of those people who came before us and broke that glass ceiling that For a lot of us who came here, my parents, that didn't have somebody that will champion them, we have to give those people those flowers at this particular time while they're above ground, while their family could also celebrate with them. For us, and sorry, but she's also my family now. These are the things, because I remember as I ran as a candidate, I walked up to her office on Essex Street and introduced myself. I said, "Hi, Julia. My name is Francisco Cirillo." She said, "I know who you are. Let's sit down and let me give you advice," which is advice that I carry to this day, which is we represent everybody that is in the city, whether they support us, whether they don't support us, whether they speak the language, whether they don't speak the language. We are here for the people. And she is one of those people, very special people, that pioneered the way for a lot of us to where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, through you, Council President. And once again, I'm gonna echo myself, saying that I'm glad that nowadays we actually recognize people that are alive. And if you sit on that bench and look at this council, maybe it's what Julia Silverio dreamed of, and she was the first one to sit here. And being in my district, the only thing I regret was that we didn't find a place near her house or near our district in this receipt, but I agree with it. And I agree with Mr. Mark LaPlante, Councilor LaPlante, that some people, we need to check if they deserve it, but when you say Julia Silverio in the city of Lawrence, people even look and they ask us, does she has a street name, does she has anything, for so much that she has done. Again, if you sit in that bench and look this way, this is Julia Silverio sitting here, and we need to honor Julia Silverio. Thank you.
Council President.
Councilor Vice President Infante.
Thank you. Through you, I want to add to my colleague's statement. Not only is this Julia Silverio, but this council, we are 6 Latina women and 3 men. Us 6 Latina councilors that are sitting here today would have been able to be here if Julia did not take that risk to run. So I'm sure she's proud to see this.
We all proud, Councilor. I just want to say one thing. When the last time that Julia came in front of us, she got out of her house, came in front of the city council. 3 budget sessions ago. And she actually talked about something that is so important to the community. And that was the fund that was proposed to be cut for the Adult Learning Center. She actually cared so much about that she actually came over to speak to us, to ask us to look around and find a way to fund that organization that is so important and vital to the city of Lawrence, to the community that today is here. Lawrence is a city of immigrants, and today are the Latinos, before were many others. And even though the community sometimes fight within communities, including different communities. Back in 1986, 84, there was a huge battle between the Latino community and another community within the city of Lawrence that we should never forget. And those times we will continue remember, because that's when actually the community take off and say, look, we are here and we are going to stay. Julia decided to run, was elected, and from there, the rest is history. So, councilors, any other questions in regard to this? Any of the family member that would like to share some words? Please come over.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you again for allowing me to speak. Evan Silverio, live in Salem, New Hampshire now, but have a small business within Lawrence. When I was first told about the idea of my mother possibly a park being named after her, I didn't know much of what to think. And I think it's because she's always kind of given her heart and soul without wanting anything in return. And anytime any spotlight was ever presented, she shied away from it in a sense. And even though I think a lot of recognition has been given over the years, it was never her intention. Thank you for the kind words that you all had to say, because she sat where you guys were sitting, and I can't even imagine filling in those shoes and hearing about the tremendous stories that you guys probably have more and can relate with her more than I can when it comes down to that. But what I can tell you is my mother had a very strong personality, and she used it for the good, for the betterment of this city. She fought hard fights. She, I think, where she felt like she had to go against somebody, she would just do it, no fear. She was fearless in that, and she did it in a way that it didn't really create enemies either, which is tough to do. Why? Because I think people respected her opinion, but I just want to say thank you again for considering her.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Any family member? Thank you for sharing this word with us.
Good evening. My name is Aliali Silverio Belkis. I am Julia Silverio's daughter. I would like to begin by thanking this council for your service and for offering us an opportunity to speak. I would also like to thank Mayor Brian De Peña for being so vocal about his consideration of my mother's name as a possibility for this park, for many of your kind words. I remember being a young woman and campaigning for my mother when I was in high school. I remember her losing. I remember us coming together as a family and her deciding we're gonna do this again. I've learned to be strong, to be fearless, to be an advocate, even when I've been afraid and even when it's been hard. And I learned that through my mother. So I'm just incredibly honored that this opportunity is being given to her. To know that there would be a park in Lawrence named after a woman whose story so many in the city can connect with, the story of a young woman who arrived to a city that promised opportunity. At that time, they were just looking for work. But she saw an opportunity every time a door was closed that actually for her was an opportunity to do something, not just for her, but because of the people that were behind her. So many, Julia Silverio's story is one of a commitment to civil service, to dedication to the development of this community, and advocacy for the youth of the city, and a hope for its future development. So many spaces here are named after people who contributed positively to the city, many of whom are men, and many of whom story is now antiquated. Not that it's lesser, we just don't know them, and many of us cannot connect in the same way that people would be able to with Julia's story. Julia Silverio is a name that would be recognized by current residents, and her story is one that young people will remember for generations. For her story is a story that so many of the city's residents will be able to relate to. A story of hope, of struggle, of dreams, and of strength. I humbly ask you to approve this proposition, and I'm very grateful that this is even a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Paulino, and I'm the niece of Julia Silverio. And I did write something, which I'm going to read from. A park dedicated as a tribute would be a gesture of all the love that Julia has for her city. My aunt has worked tirelessly to instill values in our community. As one of the city's pioneers, she worked hard to lay down some of the groundwork we see today. An immigrant who became an entrepreneur. Most of her work could be described as making decisions and taking action that benefit the well-being of the community of Lawrence. She has been an unwavering advocate, supporting local initiatives and always putting the needs of others first. She would always say, always remember where you came from and embrace the values and culture from your motherland. Lawrence is a transient city with the most powerful stories and strong people who can also make an impact. Please consider this park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? How you doing, Benny?
Good evening, Council. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share and support this great cause. I know Julia since 1974, before some of you were even born. Since I met Julia, she has been an inspiration to me as an immigrant in this city, and always invite me to promote that we all take responsibility on whatever we do in the city. It will show the face of who we are. Julia went to the radio station, and she always end up the programs that she participated with me more than 10 years. And the program, before the end of the program, she will say in Spanish, tenemos la responsabilidad de dejar este mundo mejor de lo que lo encontramos. Can you say that in English?
No, you say it.
We have the responsibility, we all called to live, when we leave, to live it better than the way we found it. And that has been the inspiration for me and my kids to tell them, remember what Julia said, it's our responsibility to live it better than the way we found it. Thank you, thank you. And the Cubans, when they came to Lawrence in 1957, after they left Cuba, there was a guy, very inspirational for the Cuban immigrants, Elbio Caravaggio, and the Italian community and Holy Rosary in the 90s came together and said thanks to the Cuban community for Elbio Caravaggio, who stood up, who went from hospital to immigration, to City Hall or to the unemployment office, helping out people to integrate and become part of the melting pot. Julia is another person who's been inspiration for this generation. I think it is important that our generation, the next generation, see the testimony that we're sending today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Councilor.
Welcome,
Santiago
Chief of Staff.
Matias, 32 Adams, Chief of Staff of the Mayor, Brian De Peña. For me tonight, it's a dream come true. I dreaming this night for a long time. I stand here before you asking for recognize one of the more successful businesswomen in the city, one of the more successful leader in the city, and one of the most successful women who take care to everybody in the city, a community leader. Today, I feel very proud to be in front of you, delivering the quality of life that Julia have. I'm very grateful for you. When they asked me, you have to send papers to all the consulars to talk about who's Julia, I said, I don't want to do that. Because every single consular knows Julia's story in the city. You know, you being involved in politics, you being involved in community work, you have to recognize that Julia always be there, you know, touching everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight, and I really, really be happy for the Silverio family, all family.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, at this point, councilors, if there is any other questions from the councilors.
I just have a quick comment on that last comment.
Councilor Plant?
I think it's important, being someone who's gone through the stack and asked the clerk to go to documents in 1920 and 1930 and the 1900s, that there's a written record, because this is not going to be around. Yeah, we all know Julio Severio. Yes, we get that. But there needs to be some documentation for people who are not at this table, who may not be around, who may be looking back and saying, who is this person that we decided to honor? And there needs to be a written record that's there that answers that question. And yeah, there hopefully will be a marker that has a little synopsis and it'll have a little something there, and that'll be helpful. But I think that we need to look in the future when we start talking about people of today. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you so much, Councilor Plant. With that said, I'll call the questions for item 40124, which is the name of the park located on Canal Street, act of Oxford Paper Mill, unofficially called Oxford Park, to Julia Silverio, and this item was sent out to this council by the Mayor Brian De Peña. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The vote passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Thank you to the family. All right, we're going to continue with the agenda. Item 40524.
Thank you. The Ordinance Committee met on this document 40524, the celebration of the Bible on September 20th to the 24th. Thank you. 3:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Campagnon Common. This was sent up to the full council with a favorable recommendation, and I just make that in form of a motion, and I'll follow up.
Second.
All right, there is item 40524, which is a celebración del Día de la Iglesia, del Día de la Biblia. September 28, 2024.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Maria Fernanda Villa from 308 Lowell Street, representation of the Iglesia Cristiana Metodista 42 Park Street, Pastor Wister Santos, and we presented this request last Monday, the 8/26, wanting permission to use the Camptown Park across the City Hall to gather there and have banners and a speaker to read the Bible in every corner of the park.
All right, good idea. Councilor Plant?
I'm just double checking. We got the okay from Recreation. There's no conflicts on that day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me ask you, I kind of see something related to a flag raising. Related
yes,
to
the
this?
flag raising, but they have told me before that we just have to speak to the mayor, and Gregory Rosario was offered to speak to the mayor about raising a flag on September 12th, 2024.
I could elaborate on that. They actually submitted, or we submitted, my pastor, and combined with their church, and we submitted the request, and the request was granted for September 12th. To celebrate the month of the Bible and also to raise up the Christian flag over the park.
All right. Thank you for doing this. This is a little different than other events that we have. But thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor Vice President Infante?
Thank you. I will be voting in favor of this, but I do want to bring to this council's attention, I've been receiving concerns from people that live around the Common Park about the loudness of some of the members of the religious community when they use the park. I also received a concern via email from a constituent of a church that we approved to preach on our sidewalks, and it's getting louder and louder. Now, at least for me, I don't know about any other councilors, but I'm starting to get emails and calls about that. So I just want you guys to be mindful. I don't know how you guys are going to do it, but also just in general for the people listening at home, that this is, I'm starting to get feedback from constituents and residents of the community.
Right, at the ordinance committee, there is a recommendation to everybody that is asking for this type of permit to maintain the speaker towards them, not to the general public. Is that something that you guys still do?
Sure, so what we do as a standard operating procedure, whether it's this group or any other groups, we also, as the council vice president stated, we remind people there's a noise ordinance. We remind people that they need to be courteous of the people around them and be mindful that they're not the only thing going on at that time in the area, and that maybe people living or doing other stuff. So when they're there, just be aware that the ordinance is still in effect, and that the volume should be at a reasonable level that doesn't interfere with other people's activities. And we also ask them to make sure that the place is in the same shape or better than the way that they found it when they finished their time. And that's just a standard comments that we make at the ordinance committee.
Yes, thank you.
Councilors, any questions? At this point, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to Personnel Committee. We have Vice President Infante and the Chair of the Personnel Committee, item 17122.
Council President, this meeting was also on the same night as the Budget Finance meeting, so I'm going to defer to the Vice Chair, Councilor Luzon, for this.
Councilor Luzon, the Vice Chair for the Personnel Committee.
Thank you. We met, Personnel Committee met last week, and item 17122, we're gonna make a motion to withdraw.
There's a motion to withdraw.
Second.
Properly second, discussion. I hear none, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 37424.
Amend non-union classification plan, Director of Project Management and Development, presented by Octavian Spanner, Senior Advisor to Mayor Brian De Peña. This was sent to the full council with a committee report.
Okay, there is, can you hear a motion to accept that as a committee report?
Second.
No, I haven't made the motion. Can you hear?
Motion to accept.
A motion. There's a motion to accept this item as a committee report. Can you hear a second?
Second.
Properly second, discussions on the committee report. I hear none, so at this point I'll call the questions for the committee report. All those in favor to accept this as a committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Now we have a committee report in front of us, Councilor. So, what's the desire, what's the motion? Before we go that way, let's get this item 37424. Do we have an underlying motion before? From there? I know it came from ordinance.
I know that it was sent to person.
So, councilors, there is two focus on this. The first one will be the item that came out of the ordinance committee, and then we refer this item to the personnel to discuss the related change pay classification, the related changes to the pay classification, as well as any other important issues related to this specific item, perhaps the posting, if it is any posting or anything like that.
Council President?
Councilor Vice President Infante.
I'm going to make a motion to approve for the purpose of discussion.
Second.
There is a motion to approve for the purpose of discussion. Discussion, Councilor Vice President Infante.
Thank you. I quickly looked, and on my notes here it says that Director Owens will present something that relates to the pay classification. So I just want to make sure we have that opportunity to go over and discuss anything that we might have missed.
Good evening, Mr. President, councilors. Michael Owens, Personnel Director for the city. We are requesting that this item be added to the non-union classification plan. That will require an amendment to the non-union classification plan under Municipal Code Section 2.160.40. It was determined that this should be added to the plan under a grade C. That would be a salary range of $81,900 to $124,800. That is in line with the evaluation from the Collins Center report, which the city uses to determine where positions should be placed on that non-union salary classification plan. We have also submitted a ordinance update for the position itself, which I believe will have to be referred to the ordinance committee, but I'll defer to the council on that as well.
All right, councilors, we have a couple of things here. The item that went to the ordinance committee, the intent was to change the title. And then that came from ordinance, and I guess that this council didn't make a determination on that. And subsequently, there was an ordinance created for that. The ordinance that was created, correct? The ordinance that was created, do we have the language for that?
Yeah, that has been, following the last meeting, the city attorney's office drafted that ordinance. We did provide a draft ordinance to the city clerk. I'm noticing now, I don't believe it's on the agenda for referral to committee, but I did.
So let's start from the get-go. I mean, we're not changing the title, we're actually creating a new ordinance.
We're updating the ordinance, the grant writer ordinance, to update the position to the new title, as well as new duties, new qualifications. So it's an update of the grant writer position.
So, councilors, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but we have a grant writer in place. Changing the title to the grant writer, changing the duties to the grant writer to a new position, basically, and not publishing the position is kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I think like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I mean, this should be a new position. And then because we're changing the duties, we're changing everything, the ordinance itself. Changing the ordinance, changing the duties, the only thing that we're not creating is the posting. Because we're not posting it, am I right?
Yes, but I would slightly disagree. This would be considered a reclassification or reorganization of the position. And this goes back to, if I may, Mr. President, this goes back to what we discussed previously, that in a non-union position, you can reorganize or reclassify that position, and you can basically absorb the employee currently holding that position into that new position. If you were to eliminate the grant writer position and create a new position, what you would have to do is you'd have to lay off the employee in that current position, and you'd have to draft this new position, approve the new position, post for the new position, hire for the new position. So you're eliminating one position, adding another, versus...
Or you just don't eliminate the position. And you post it internally, and people apply. And if the grant writer or perhaps any other person from any other department get to that position, that person needs to resign to the other position because they cannot hold two positions.
Sure, absolutely, Mr. President, if I may. You can not eliminate the position. However, there is a need for this position, and that's how this came about, because there's a need in the city, and Mr. Spanners here can speak a little more specifically to that need. But there is a need for this type of position. So we're coming before the council requesting that this position be created in ordinance. The mayor, Mr. Spanner, believe, and they can speak a little bit more directly to this, that this position would essentially supersede the grant writer position, so that's why it would replace that position. This new position would be the duties of the grant writer and more. It has more responsibility, it has more oversight, and the idea is to kind of, for this position, to oversee grant writing that occurs in all city departments and to have some synergy between those departments in terms of grant writing.
So before.
Through you, Mr. President.
Hello? Where? Oh. It was like, I thought I was here. Councilor Reyes?
Was me. I have a question. How many grant writing we have in our city?
One.
In this kind of department?
Council, so I believe within departments, they have different personnel that are responsible for grant writing within that department. But within the city, my understanding, and I would have to double check, but my understanding there would be this one grant writer position. What this proposal would do would be to change that position to have them write grants for the city as they are doing now, but also to coordinate with other city departments and the personnel within those departments that are writing grants within those departments to kind of have some, coordination between them. So, for example, if the police department is looking at grants, say, for body cameras, and the DPW is looking at grants, say, for traffic
Oh, the more
safety.
responsibility.
Exactly, and this
Okay.
person
It's
would.
it's responsibility.
Absolutely, Counselor. It would be more responsibility, and they would have, there'd be more accountability, right? Because you'd have one person that the administration or the council can go to and to say, hey, what's going on with this grant? And that person can follow up and track those projects, those grant projects within those departments. Really, where this came about, how this came about, is because there have been situations in the city where things have fallen through the cracks in terms of grant writing. The city has left money on the table, if you will, or grants have, we have things that we want to do in terms of maybe body cameras or other initiatives, and I'm not saying that's what our intent is on body cameras, just to be clear, but I'm just giving you an example. But there have been situations where we want to apply for grants and deadlines were missed or things were overlooked and the city wasn't able to go after those opportunities. So what this does is this assigns one person with that responsibility to track all of those projects. Because the person that may be responsible, say in the police department for grant writing, may also have a lot of other responsibilities. So this person, their sole duty is to pay attention to grants that are ongoing throughout all city departments, and they would have the responsibility to track those projects and follow up on those things.
Council President.
Thank you so much. I'm not ending. So, for my understanding, we not necessarily do any kind of publication because it's the same person, just it's only change the title and responsibility with the same person doing this position.
Yes, Councilor, if I may, to the President, this would be a restructuring of a current position. So we wouldn't be posting the position. We would be going in and we'd be saying, hey, you do this position, we're changing the duties, the responsibilities of that position, and we can absorb that employee into that position. If we create a new position, then you post the position and people would apply to it.
Thank you for clarification.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Council.
Council President. Thank you. So before I get into my questions, you kind of, Director Owens, and I have to say this, I have to do my job. You kind of did a disservice for this, for a second, for this position and the individual by saying that money, funding, and grants have slipped through the cracks. When we approved the grant writer's position, everything that you stated that the city is lacking is the reason why we introduced a grant writer position. This should be happening right now. But I do understand that our city is growing, our departments are growing. And I understand the need for a restructure and a need for a position. What I still don't have the answer to is these flow charts that were still here. They're still in our packets. And I also would like to know, obviously when we are, we're calling this a title change, but we have a whole job description for this new position. So I'm considering it as a new position, the way that's presented to the council. Under the duties and responsibilities, there are a few items that obviously these are cultivated by things that are currently happening in daily operations. So I would like to know, aside from the grant writing, are we using any current external assistance for grant writing and grant management? And secondly, this new job description does say that part of the duties and responsibilities is going to work with the LRA. What percentage of daily operations right now is the grant writer's time being used for the LRA as well? So those are my two questions right now.
Counselor, and if I may, to the President, Counselor, I would defer to Mr. Spanner for those two because he has a little more understanding of those to answer those questions. But I just want to clarify one thing, going back to your earlier point. Just to be clear, am not saying that it's the individual that currently holds this position that has caused things to fall through the cracks. Just to be clear on that.
I know.
What I'm saying is that there are many departments pursuing many different grants, and it has happened where things have fallen through the cracks, deadlines have not been met because people within departments are often handling many other things in addition to grant writing. So this would just allow that oversight.
I understand, and I said this before, and I'm going to say this again. I've worked with our grant writer. She hosted a meeting in my district yesterday for a grant that we're working on to fix our railroad. So I know the quality of work that she provides. But this isn't about her specifically. This is about what is presented to the city council at this moment.
Understood. Thank you.
Council President Octavian Spanner, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. Councilors, good evening. Can you please repeat the question through the chair? Vice President Infante.
Through you, Council President. My question is, I'm getting tired now. One is, are we using any external resources to help our grant writer either write or manage any of the City of Lawrence grants? And the second is, if the new description here has an LRA component, has our grant writer been working with the LRA currently, and what percentage of her daily duties is committed to that?
I'll start with the last question through you, Mr. Chair. The Council President, 25%. 25% of all city employees that are involved in work with the LRA, and we don't go beyond that because then it's counterproductive. The other question, the second question that you had in regards to do we have consultants that work? Yes. We do have consultants that are working primarily on technical stuff, like for instance engineers that are providing services, and we do have to work with them because these are beyond the knowledge and also area of competency of the grant writer, basically. There are other departments that are involved, but I can give you a good example like today. We follow the system. What we're trying to request is that we have different departments that are involved in meetings. Number one, to understand what the funding agency is requesting. Second of all, compliance. And third of all, if there are match requirements or what is it that are basically the city needs to meet. What we're requesting and why we're augmenting the responsibilities is basically to ensure that, number one, that we get more money. We have future challenges that I spoke about when I first presented, that we're gonna have challenges in the next 10 years, period. We have 2 schools, we have our commitment with our contracts, and looking ahead, we need to start pursuing funding. And it's gonna be a lot of work for one individual to not only go after the funding, identify, work with the different departments that you see in your flow chart. Then third, and those are not, just to clarify for the public as well as for you, city councilors, this is not requesting additional positions in other departments, but to ensure that once we receive these funds, if we are awarded, that they are expended in a proper fashion. Number 2, fulfilling all the requirements, and that funds are not returned. And for instance, during the budget hearing, there were questions. You know, what are the funds in each department? Those should be one person, a focal point within the city that can provide all this information and not be disjointed, that, let's say, you have different silos, that police department is the only one that knows about the information, or HHS is the only one, or community development, but that we have a central database and a person that is responsible of, and that's the reason why we put in the title project management as well, because it's going to be required for us to have that. So we currently do not have any person out of the city that controls or manage the grants. But we do work with consultants, especially engineering groups and probably architects and so forth, that needs to give us the narratives.
Thank you. Through you, Council President, going back to the flow chart and the organizational matrix comment. So this position, this director position, will be working with the departments that are shown here in the organizational matrix, but it is still, from the discussions that we're having tonight, it is still one individual working with these departments, which is currently the same process that we have through the grant writer's position. Which, what I'm hearing is the issue of they need more help. Again, I'm gonna bring this up, I brought this up last time. I am seeing titles here of positions, of individuals, of little icons, little people here in the organizational matrix that we do not have positions for currently. These are not current positions in the city of Lawrence.
Councilor, these are individuals. They are current city employees that, let's say, if there's an assignment for a grant, assuming that there's a transportation grant, there's individuals within the departments, let's say DPW. You have 2 assistant directors. One of them should be in charge. I'll give just as an example. Or whoever the director can appoint or assign as one of the titles that you have. This is not creating positions within the department, but they have the assignment. And why? Number 1, each department should have a person that is responsible and accountable. The director is ultimately the individual that is accountable for the functioning of the department, but that person, there should be a person in that department that the director assigns that would be knowledgeable, that knows the technical jargon or narrative or help in the narrative, if the grant writer is not capable of understanding certain technical stuff. The same applies to the police department. There's certain, we have, what's her name, Rosa Shepherd, that is working. That's a perfect. They're working perfectly with our grant writer in terms of providing information, helping write the grant, and also control the submittal.
I hear you.
All right, Councilor President, further questions?
Last comment, I promise. I hear you, but again, your explanation does not reflect the illustration that I'm seeing here. I'm going to use the police department as an example, police department lead. For the grants position, I see an arrow going to the lead coordinator that's within the circle of the director of project management. So I'm seeing the leads within the departments of your explanation, but I'm still not receiving an answer for the inner circle of leads, like the OPD lead coordinator. There's another one that just says lead coordinator. I'm not hearing an explanation for the additional
Well, each one of
things
the
here.
departments, each one of the directors, if the director is, let's say, too busy or doing other assignments, then the director can appoint, let's say, we have our economic development director. He's working on a grant, or the project management development or the grant writer is working on a grant, but the director is busy. That person, that director can appoint, for instance, the project officer 1 or project officer 2 to be the lead individual. And that lead individual needs to work with the grant writer, in that case, the new title, not only to write the grant, but if you look at the job description, project management is not included in the current job description.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Right,
I have a
I
comment.
just want to, Councilor Fidelina Santiago?
I agree with my colleague, Vice President Infante. I think that one is not really with the person. She worked very good. I don't have any problem with her, but I consider that the new position because change the name, change the title, and change the duties. And the salary, what about the salary?
Salary is going to be 88,000 to 124,000.
It is changed as well.
Yes.
Yes, correct. Yes, and Councilor, through you, Council President, we're working not with the same amount of grants. We hired a lot in the past, we have assigned, paid, and delegated certain responsibility to consultants. They haven't delivered. So if we are trying to get more funding, there's more responsibilities, and there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work, more than what we can explain here on a daily basis. But we can invite you as a counselor, you know, if you so wish, to see how it works on a daily basis, because it's tedious.
Through you, President.
Sure.
If he is no title or no, you said it's not new position, but why you don't create the new position and follow the rule? What it is the rule for the new position?
Then because it's going to cost us more money. Because you're going to have 2 positions. We don't need an extra position. What we're doing is changing the titles and adding responsibility, like our HR director just mentioned. We're not creating a new position. Then that means that we need to hire 2 people. And while this coordination can happen within departments.
Good.
The money will be changed as well.
Yes, but if we have another position, then another position, it would be 2 positions, 2 separate positions, and it's going to be more money.
Okay.
Well, what she said is like, you don't have to hire another person. You just hire one. I mean, you don't have to. If we have many positions that we don't fund. Many positions that we not necessarily fund. That's essentially what it is. But before we continue, councilors, I just want to read the memorandum, because the memorandum will be very important to all of us. The memorandum was sent out to the city clerk, Eileen Bernard, and it came from the mayor's office and the senior advisor, Octavian Spanner, and it read as follow. Under Mayor Brian De Peña directive, we are instituting the change to the title, to the job description, to the salary classification of the grant writer within the Office of Planning and Development. To the budgetary constraint, the city is aggressively pursuing funding to address financial gaps across the departments. The redefined title of Director of Project Management, the Project Management and Development, will now oversee all aspects of fund development, ensuring proactive pursuit of funding and delivering projects in a timely manner. During 1 year of reconstituting the position of GW, the city secured close to $6 million and approximately $20 million in project revenue. This position will rigorously monitor funds management to prevent any potential mislocation or return of fund to the city of Lawrence. That was the description that was sent, or the memorandum that was sent to the city council. There is one specific thing here that I would like some clarifications on. When you said that this position will now oversee all aspects of fund development, ensuring proactive pursuing of funding, and deliberating project in a timely manner. So basically, this person is going to be managing the fund as when they go to different departments. Is that what it read on the
Well,
memo?
project management means that, I mean, in this context, is what, we have the funds. Who follows through with what happens with the funds? When does a project start? Because first, is there a plan? Second of all, is it being executed according to the timeline that has been provided to the funding agency? Has it been executed? In what stage of implementation is the project? And lastly, the closing of the project in terms of reporting to the funding agency what has happened with those funds, and if the project has been executed.
So this director now is going to oversee all aspects of funds developments, meaning that this position is going to be defining where those funds are going to go?
No, that's
Well, that's
no.
what it says here.
Well, it could be interpreted. I understand in terms of overseeing if the funds are being used, that nothing is being left over. That's not the I mean, it's in conjunction with the director in making sure, hey, you know, you have these funds. Why have you started implementing the project? This project should have started already. You know, sometimes projects start, departments wait until 6 months before the deadline of the reporting or closing of the project, and that's not the way to operate. We have to make sure that there's someone, a focal point, a person that is calling a department and say, Department A, you have a project. When are you going to start? Are you going to start now? The closing of the reporting to the funding agency is in December, and now we are already in September. What's going on? And this is also. Remember, the mayor is the executive branch. So the mayor is basically responsible in calling a director and say, hey, listen, what's going on? Why have these funds not being used? Why hasn't the project been started?
Yeah, but this position is not going to be under the mayor's office. It's going to be in the economic development.
It responds, yes, it responds to the director, but that's their responsibility to let the director of OPD know. Listen, and if the director doesn't do anything, that individual can go directly to the mayor and let the mayor know, hey, listen, we're going to lose funds, or we're not using it. You don't have to report to any director if you know something is not functioning. As an employee, you have accountability to the public as well. That's the job of public servant. So if a department head is not being diligent the subordinates can report that director. That's our democracy.
That's not how it is.
Yeah, that's the reason why you have
Councilor
whistleblowing.
Plan. You can call them on subordination through this person right here, and then eventually, and you call them up. Councilor Plan.
Hey, thanks. So, 3 things. Mr. Spanner, before you sit down, I got a question for you before you get too comfortable. Mr. Spanner, come back, please. So, you said something that I thought was quite profound, and I don't want to, I didn't fall asleep when you said it. We have paid, you fell asleep?
Yes.
Okay, you're back. We have paid consultants and they have not delivered. So I think it's responsible for us as the body that does the overview of the budget and the spending of the budget, and we do that stuff. I don't need to know it tonight because I'm not sure you're prepared for that, but I would like to know more information. Who have we paid and who has not produced? Where's our money been wasted? So if you could provide, I can't speak for the council. If you send that to me, I would love to see that. And if all the other councils want to see that too, I'm fine with that as well.
No, send it to the full council.
To full
Send
council.
it to the full council, and I would like to inform the full council right now, there has been contract and organizations that have not gone through procurement that have managed city projects. And that's very concerning.
So do me a favor if you don't mind.
We will provide
That's
you with
a rabbit hole that I just wanted to tiptoe into but not go into. So if you could just send that to us, what your findings are, I think it's important that we know that so that we don't repeat mistakes.
Correct.
All right, thank you. That's one. Two.
But before you continue, make sure that you go full spectrum on that, not one specific section.
So far, we do everything thorough, and we have provided the information. We have also been working with the different regulatory agencies, like for instance, the IG's office, to know basically based on exemptions and what an organization can do or not do, how procurements are followed, who has contracts, who are the custodians of the contracts, that whenever, let's say the mayor asks, or you yourselves as this body, legislative body, ask for a documentation like you're doing right now, that we can provide you with that information.
Councilor Plan?
So the second thing is a parliamentary question for the council president. Are we expecting to be ordering a public hearing on this matter? We can't adopt this thing. They're changing the ordinances, so I'm presuming it's a public hearing.
We need to order a public hearing.
Okay,
on the
good.
ordinance.
Just an important clarification. And I think that we're going to have a more robust discussion then. But let me put my oar in the water now so the administration can think about this a little bit more as it reviews tonight's meeting. I've got some fundamental concerns or questions regarding the insertion of the LRA as part of this package and responsibilities. And the reason why it's something that I've got questions about is because we have an autonomous independent board. I'm just wanting to make sure that that board remains autonomous and we're not doing all this, and I understand the benefits of it, by the way. I don't want to see too much of this combination of stuff unless the LRA, who's already a self-funded organization through the good works of this council, frankly, they can cost share and they're going to spend and provide their money. Maybe that's the way to do it, because I want to see that person, whoever it is that's doing the grant writing, focus on city issues. And when I say city issues, I don't mean LRA, because we have to distinguish between the LRA and the city. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Maybe we can have an offline conversation, but that's something that's in my head right now, especially after listening to the council president bring that up as a concern.
I mean, now that you bring it up, I would like to know, like, what are those positions that are spending 25% of the city employee time on the LRA? What are those positions, perhaps? We have the grant writer,
They could be, they are currently the Office of Planning and Development. You have the Director of
The entire office?
No, specifically the grant writer, the Director of Economic Development, the Planning Director, and also in the future now that we're getting, because you don't only have economic development project, but community development project is tied into economic development or development in general.
How many time do you spend on
We
your
put
own
it,
time?
we put it like 25% of the time that is dedicated.
So you're spending your time with the LRA, it doesn't represent a conflict of interest since you are the director of the LRA?
Council President, I think you have asked this question many times. We provided that information. The city attorney can give you also an answer the question, because I've answered it several times.
No, the reason that I'm asking this specifically over is because I went to the LRA meeting and I hear that the LRA now is entertaining a possibility of the city, the staff that work there, looking up for an opportunity or an application to get into the retirement account that the city of Lawrence have through the LRA. So having that in mind, obviously you're going to have an opportunity to be a potential retiree from the LRA as well as the city of Lawrence. So that's why you're spending 25% of your time at the LRA being an employee as a director, so being an employee there. So it's like, it's a situation that is a little tricky.
Mr. President, if I may just speak to
Sure.
some of that about the retirement piece. I have no involvement whatsoever with the LRA. They're a separate entity as far as I'm concerned from the city. Any retirement benefits that they're trying to participate in would be, they could, if it's the will of the LRA and if they go through the proper channels to participate in the city's contributory retirement system, that would be for the LRA employees. You would not be able to participate and get the benefit of both as a city employee and as an LRA employee. So it's one
Yeah,
or
but
the
I
other.
mean, that's what I'm saying. So since the director is also a city employee, that's kind of the concern as of why.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to, for lack of a better term, double dip. If it's
No, that
just,
wouldn't-
it's LRA employees would, if, like I said, if they go through the proper channels, and if it's the will of the city and legislation to allow that to happen, and they're, able to participate in the system, then it would only be for the full-time or part-time, whatever's allowed, employees of the LRA. An employee of the city would participate through the city's fund.
Yeah, I went to that board and I overhear that, and that was a question that I asked why I thought through. So, I mean, now, talking about this position and 25% of this person spend it at the LRA, and we keep on mentioning that there is more needs within the city. I mean, do we have to have this person working for the LRA 25% of the time instead of focusing on grant writing since we're pursuing so many funds? It's like, I don't know. It's a situation that is a tricky situation.
If I may, just, I can't speak for the needs of the LRA. Maybe Mr. Spanner can. I can't speak for the needs of the LRA, but I can speak to the need for this position within the city. I think there's a separate conversation that has to happen about allocation of personnel resources in the city and the allocation of those resources to the LRA. Should that be happening? At what percentage? How should we be using those resources to assist the LRA? That's, I think, something that personnel, the administration, has to look at, and we have to evaluate that and see what's in the best interest of the city. But that's obviously a bigger thing for us to look at. Is to answer your question about employees doing 25% of their work for the LRA. Some employees doing 10%. That's a personnel management issue that we have to look at, and we have to see, one, are there conflicts? Is that the best use of those employees? Should they be dedicating 100% to their city position? But that's a much bigger evaluation that we have to do. I don't really, with all due respect, I don't want that to cloud this position or undermine the need for this position, you know, and if it's the will of the council that this position is passed and this person, you know, is limited in what they can do for the LRA, then that's a conversation we can have. Yeah, that we can have.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we keep on saying we need this position, but I mean this position is going to be only at the 75% level. I mean, how that's going to help the city?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so I think that if this goes to the ordinance committee and we can have those discussions about is that the best use of this position, I think it's appropriate. I think that's an appropriate conversation to have, and during the discussions about potentially passing this ordinance change.
I mean, Madam Clerk, is the ordinance that is related to this position was submitted by at the time that it was that it went to the ordinance committee?
Council President, no. The ordinance that we are looking at was submitted at the Personnel Committee meeting. There was a request from the City Attorney's Office at the full council meeting for additional language from the City Attorney. So in an effort to expedite the process, they delivered it right at the Personnel meeting, which was within a day or two. So we have met as a body since that request was made. So the language that you have in your packages tonight, there is a proposed ordinance language. We have had it since the Personnel Committee meeting, but not since the Ordinance Committee meeting, which would have been a meeting cycle before that.
How long is it going to take you to publish this ordinance?
If you want, we could publish it tomorrow. If I get it to the Tribune tomorrow, it will be published on Monday. And then you could have it at the next meeting if you want to do that, or we can go one more cycle out. It's up to you.
I think that, it will be appropriate to send this language to the ordinance committee while we also potentially order the public hearing. If there is any changes, I mean, something that we can modify by the time that it get here. But we still have some time, so it will be appropriate to send it to the ordinance committee. Once we finish the discussion tonight, we'll be sending it up to the ordinance committee at the same time that we order the public hearing, so we don't delay the process, but at least the ordinance committee have an opportunity to go over the ordinance portion of it. Any other questions regarding to this specific position, councilors? We have two components of the position. We have the ordinance change, which will change the job title and the duties of that within the ordinance, and we also have the job descriptions and the salary arrangement that went over to the personnel committee. The salary will be between $88,000 to $124,000 plus or minus. Within that C section of that non-union classification. Any questions, councilors, on this? I'll entertain a motion to order public hearing if the council desire, or any other motion. Any other motions, councilor?
So, Council President,
Madam Vice President Infante.
I motioned to approve for the purpose of discussion. There was a second. Do we need to close this motion, or do we need to?
Still have, we can have that as an underlying motion. Another motion can be on top of it.
Okay, so I motion to order public hearing on this as the underlying motion.
Second.
All right, there is a motion, the motion is in order to order a public hearing, properly second discussions on the order of public hearing.
No discussion. Just a quick discussion. When the ordinance committee reviews this, just so we're clear, we're reviewing in our packet the document that says be it ordained by the city council 2.70.280. We're looking at the entire ordinance change, everything that's in there? Okay, everything.
I mean,
because salaries and benefits is in there as well. That's part of the ordinance.
Yeah, but I mean, you will take the recommendation from the
Sure.
personnel committee
Sure.
that is already have discussed this,
Sure.
which is basically the non-union classification section C, which is anywhere between $88,000 to $124,000.
Mr. President, if I just make clarify.
Sure.
So it's the draft ordinance that would be going to the ordinance committee, and that's the updating, it's 2.70.28, right? Okay.
Yes. What we're doing, we have we have a motion to order the public hearing on this, while we also have the same time, while we're waiting for the public hearing, we're gonna send it over to that ordinance committee, and they're gonna analyze the entire ordinance, including the updated version of the ordinance, and any proper changes that come up out of that will be properly posted on that.
That's my question, Council President. So if this is going to go to print on Monday, and the ordinance committee meets on Tuesday, and let's say that one of the ordinance committee members has this fantastic idea that everybody agrees with and amends it. This thing's already gone to print with an amended product. How do we reconcile that?
So, Madam Clerk, you might clarify.
The same as you would do with any public hearing, you have the right to make amendments live on the floor at the public hearing. So I think the recommendation would be, if it's already been published, bring the edits back to the public hearing, make them at the public hearing where they can either be adopted by the full council or not. But to run the ad as is with the grade C language in it, and then if the committee on ordinance has recommendations, just have those made at the public hearing, where they can be amended. Anyone interested from the public knows that it can be amended at a public hearing, so.
During the floor time, when we have the floor, but in 2 weeks from today, we can make any type of recommendation. We'll follow the recommendation from the ordinance committee. Any other questions, councilors? I hear no questions. At this point, this item will be going back to the ordinance committee for further review with the proper update ordinance that was presented to the full council. So, thank you. The public hearing, we haven't called the question for the public hearing, right?
What is it?
Public
Not
hearing, we
voted,
have, all right. Yes, we will call the questions for the public hearing and subsequently send it out to the ordinance committee.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All those in
Thank you,
favor,
Council.
please say aye. To order the public hearing. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you. Now, at this time, this item will be going to the ordinance committee for further review. Thank you. Now, we're going back to the top of the agenda. We have item 405-24, which is the we did this one already. Sorry, never mind. There is no public safety report, no committee of the whole report, all business. We have no old business. Councilors, that would like to take any matter from the table matters?
Council President.
Councilor Luzon.
No. Oh, you want me to do?
All right, we have item 39424, which is the authorization to spend $286,000 from MVPC EPA revolving loan funds. We discussed this before, and we have the McCarthy here. Councilors, can we have a motion to remove out of the table matters?
Discussion.
Motion to on table. It was second discussion.
I'm just going to let
Councilor
the council president know that I will be recusing myself for a potential, although unlikely, conflict of interest.
All right, Councilor LaPlante has recused himself out of this item. 1, 2, 3. We have quorum still. Councilors, there was properly second. All those in favor, please say aye to untable this matter.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So now, councilors, we have item 39424. In front of us, we have the Economic Development Director, we have the planner, the planning department, and so far so on. So let's discuss this item and make a proper determination. The McCarthy,
Thank
the
you,
land
Council
planner, please,
President.
name and address for the record, please.
First, I wish to apologize. I wasn't available. I was on a vacation 2 weeks ago, and I was ill last week, so I wasn't able to come to the prior meetings. The application that I put on this was a request to authorize the expenditure of funds for a project. It's a demolition project that's being funded through an EPA grant. I do have here with me today Mr. Rick Vandenberg,
who is an LSP, environmental engineer, working for the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and he's assisting the city with several projects. And I also have Mr. Gerard Witten, who is from the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, who can answer questions and explain the funding source that we're in.
Yes, go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep on going.
The project before you currently is the demolition of a building which sits on a city-owned parcel of land at 9 to 11 Florence Street. The city acquired this property through the tax title process for delinquent taxes. When the city acquired this property, it was extremely dirty. It was filled with debris. It had been used over the years for people to dispose of tires and other products. For a long time, it was an automobile repair garage. In 2015, the city was able to acquire a brownfields grant, and we used that to conduct first a phase 1 testing, and then later on we did some ground evaluations. We removed some underground, some storage tanks, but there was also, we came up in 2018 with a work plan for the future, but at that point, that brownfields grant had run out. So since 2020, we've been looking for a funding source to move forward with this project. In 2023, in conversations with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, we were made aware the availability of $286,000 in petroleum cleanup money that was available through the EPA revolving loan fund. The money in this case, a portion of that money would be in the form of a grant, $101,000 in the grant, and the remaining $185,000 would be a loan. It'd be a low-interest loan. We wouldn't have to pay it up for several years, and it would be very advantageous to the city. And we entered into negotiations, entered into a contract with MVPC in August of 2023. At the same time, we are beginning to look at our next rounds of EPA funding, and the fact that the city had negotiated this contract, the fact that we had done a lot of work on the Merrimack paper site, demolishing that building, the fact that we had done cleanup work at Tomborello, had all impressed the EPA, and we were fortunate enough to get $1 million for an area-wide grant, which goes to the entire city. But we had already committed this $286,000 towards this project. Mr. Vandenberg, who's here, works for Credier, assisted the city with writing bid documents. We went out to bid. We have an LSP. The documents are all in your file, I believe, with the documents. So, and that's where we are at the current point. We have a contractor ready to put under contract, but we just need the City Council's approval to expend this money. And again, I have Mr. Vandenberg here, who's ready to present you with a PowerPoint presentation on the contamination on the site.
Before we go to the contamination portion of it.
Yes.
So the funding from EPA
yes.
was never mentioned before. That means that we're not going to have any loans on this now. That we're going to. Is the money, is the $1 million going to cover the portion of the loan that the city was supposed to be responsible? About 180.
It's not earmarked for that. We're going to look at it. I think part of we're going to use some of the money. The loan is just strictly for the demolition. We did go through the bidding process. The low bidder was $208,000. So the first $101,000 is a grant.
Yes.
And so the remainder, if all we need is $208,000, the loan will be $107,000.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, is the $1 million going to cover that loan or no?
We can look for other sources to pay that off rather than go through the loan process. But I don't think, I think Mr. Witten and Ms. Credier might be able to speak more towards the EPA requirements, but I don't think EPA would let us take some money to pay off a loan from, some of their other money. But
Because most of the questions were along the funding.
yes,
So going on to the contamination portion of it, which is very technical,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily going to help the conversation if the questions were about funding. So probably we should start with that.
yeah, as I said, the loan is very good terms. We don't have to start making payments on it for up to 2 years. When we do start making payments, it's at a very low percentage. And the money goes back into, like I said, into the EPA. We've used some of this money in the past to contribute to the Tombarella cleanup. And again, part of participating in these programs puts us in good standing with EPA, so that when we go back to EPA, they know that Lawrence is a strong and dedicated community when it comes to environmental protection, and that we when we have these projects and when we identify these problems, we take action to make sure they get addressed. So I think Mr. Whitten can talk to you maybe in more detail about whether or not the funding can be used to compensate that. I know we've discussed this in the mayor's office about whether we'd use other funding or other grant money to cover those costs, which we can do. I'm just not sure if the EPA you can cover EPA costs with EPA money. That's the issue.
No, the question was around the funding, because I mean, it's all about, it's part of the cleanup. So if that could be clear up, I mean, that would be great, because most of the question went around that.
Good evening, Rick Vandenberg, Cuderi Associates. So we're the qualified environmental professionals for Merrimack Valley Planning's Commission Brownfields program, and I can help you with the funding question that you're asking. So the $286,000 that's been requested in the form of a sub-grant and a loan cannot be paid off with the $1 million grant that you got for what we refer to as the multi-purpose grant. And the reason is because you can't use one pot of in this case, you can't use direct two funds from EPA to pay off each other. So you can use other federal funds to pay it off, for example, like ARPA or something else, but in this case, the two EPA things cannot cancel each other out.
Understood. That was one of the questions before.
Yet if you have any other questions about the funding, so I think that the one thing I will say about how this has been viewed is, and I'll keep the contamination stuff not very technical at all, there is contamination. It's unclear where that contamination goes, particularly under the building. So the reason for the demolition is, first and foremost, that the building's about to fall down on itself. Secondarily, it's we don't know where that contamination goes. So EPA will allow us to use those funds to take that building down, which is also contaminated with lead-based paint and some asbestos. It will allow those funds to be used to do that, and then at the end of it, it'll pay for some additional sampling, which in the EPA realm we call additional characterization, to understand where the rest of that contamination is under the building. So then the rest of the $1 million that you got for the multi-purpose can come in and be used to pay for the rest of the cleanup that needs to happen there. This is just the first step.
Understood. Questions on regard to the funding portion of the project before we go into the contamination portion of it? All right, I hear no questions, so let's go straight to the presentation.
The laptop died, so
I want to take out the leaf first, but I mean, maybe don't notice.
just hit start slideshow. Great. Actually, right there is fine. How do you advance? Great. You can go ahead and advance. So the biggest thing is we wanted to address the council and because we heard from the last meetings that there was some uncertainty about why the facility is considered a brownfields, what kind of funding's been using, and what the nature of the contamination is. So I basically have 8 quick slides that can get to the heart of this. Next slide. So what makes this a brownfields is that the definition of a brownfields according to EPA is very general on purpose to allow a whole host of sites to be included. And the idea is that it's real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of is complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. So considering that this facility was used formerly for auto body and paint use, and there are already contaminants identified, it very easily falls into the pot and is considered a brownfield site. So currently, the contaminants that we know about are lead-based paint. There's some asbestos in the roof materials. There's some gasoline constituents in the soil from probably a combination of, there were some floor drains inside the building that probably had contamination disposed to them. And then also there were some former tanks. There are currently also some partially full tanks inside the building. Considering the condition, you want to get that petroleum out of the tanks. There's also some drums on the outside that you want to keep from freezing. They haven't released yet, so where there's some concern about that. There's also, in addition to the gasoline and soil, there's arsenic, heavy metals, arsenic and lead that's been detected in the soils. The lead probably related to gasoline, and the arsenic probably related to general urban fill. And here's some pictures of the building. You can see that obviously this is at the time we started to do this. Merrimack Valley got us involved, and we wanted to help the city, and we helped by devising a set of bid documents and doing what they call an analysis of brownfields cleanup alternatives that tells how that cleanup should happen. And so the next step was just to now that that's been prepared, the city put it out to bid, and they selected at least preliminarily accepted a bid. You can see from the map there's a red dashed line in the center, and that red dashed line is the last known whereabouts of the soil contamination. There's no groundwater contamination, at least at the last time they tested, and that will have to be looked at in the future. But from what we see currently, you can see it goes underneath the building. That dashed line under the building really should have some question marks next to it because we don't know the full extent, and that's what will happen once the building comes down. And this is, next to me is Gerard Witten from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and he's just going to speak a little bit about the funding. Ultimately, there's layers of funding needed, and that's the message I think that I'll present.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Gerard Witten. I'm with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. I think most of you know we work very closely with city staff on a wide variety of projects, but we've also been operating this brownfields program on a regional basis for more than 20 years. And it's all using funding from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So this project really came to our attention as a result of a brownfields roadshow we did in a number of our communities, including Lawrence, where we visited different sites that have known history of contamination. This was a site that was identified as a potential for redevelopment, and our work was really to bring in experts who are expert in hazardous waste assessment and remediation. That's where Rick and Crederi come in. They are our environmental experts. So we're really just the folks who apply for the funding to EPA and then make it available for projects across our region. And then we bring in folks like Rick to do the actual analysis, but we work with you folks and of course the mayor to identify which those properties are that are priorities for the city to start this process of assessment and abatement. So the breakdown that's on the screen is really just the money that's associated with the Florence Street property, what's been spent to date or what's been allocated to date, I should say, because it's pending your approval. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add to that, but happy to answer any questions about how we're involved in the program, how the program is structured, or anything as it relates to Florence Street.
So we good with the presentation? All right, great. Councilors, I would like to offer an opportunity to ask any questions in regard to what we have seen as the site being defined as a brownfield and identifying potential contaminants. Any questions in regard to this?
Council President.
Council Luzon?
I have a few questions through you, Council President. The first one, and for the record, Mr. McCarthy, do you had a meeting in regards to this on April 4 at the public library?
Excuse me?
Yes, there was a meeting on April 4 at the public library. I don't think you attended.
Yeah, that.
But you had a meeting.
And if I did, I
you guys
probably wouldn't remember it,
but they attended.
they attended it,
Okay, just for the record, we mentioned that, Council President, in the last meeting, and we didn't have, I mentioned it. I asked Advisor Spanner about this meeting and didn't have any information in regards to it.
But it did happen,
I knew
yeah.
that no one from the city attended. So, just for the record. My other question is, are you aware of that this that site, this other, the site next to it, it's leased by another mechanic? So I'm asking.
I am aware, it's actually in one of the reports that I drafted. That was the mechanic was giving a license from a prior administration to park cars on the lot. That use was authorized by the by EPA.
So why do I ask to you, Council President? Because if that site also contaminated, or we don't have any idea.
Yeah, if you look from the aerial view of that picture, there is a garage which sits on one parcel of land. Between that parcel and the parking lot is a street called Florence Place. It's actually a street, but it's currently fenced off, and we've told the automotive repairman to keep any cars off of Florence Place. That's where he has a license for the remainder of that property.
And through you, Council President, I mentioned that because there's a possibility of that site also being contaminated. I'm not an expert, just based on who leased the site. Could that be possible?
I think if you actually went through a great portion of Lawrence, anyway, for testing, you'd find some form of contamination. We currently know that there is significant contamination where this garage is because the prior owners of the property were pouring the oil, which they're not supposed to. They're supposed to store the oil and have it taken off site. They are pouring it down the drain. And that's come up that there's a large bloom underneath this building that we can't test and we can't analyze because the building sits on top of it. Typically, we won't be able to use this funding to demolish a building like this. The reason we can use this funding is because that oil's under there, and they want us to take the building down so we can see how badly that oil contamination is.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. McCart. My concern to you, Council President, is that the amount of money that the city is looking to use could be more than that. That is just one concern. Another question to you, Council President. And when did Merrimack Valley came across this project? Can you explain the time frame? You mentioned that you choose sites, or sites are referred to you by the mayor's office?
Is that question to?
To the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever can answer.
Oh, I mean, this project itself was identified as soon as the city acquired this building, opened up the doors and looked inside. We said there is a serious issue here because there was oil tanks and and 50-gallon drums of fluids everywhere. So we knew there was an issue. We were able to get a Brownsfield assessment grant back in 2015 to study this area, and specifically the garage. And we did a number of test pits and discovered the bloom of oil beneath the garage. There's also a long history that was done by our engineer at the time. There was a company called Nobis Engineering. So they worked with us for almost 5 years, and through this grant process to get to 2020 when they filed their final reports with a work plan. And the first part of that work plan was to demolish the building. And the issue at the time was we didn't have that funding to demolish the building until we, as I said, we met with MPPC, and this petroleum, this money that was only to be used for petroleum assessment was discovered, and we were able to use that in contract for that.
So when, to you, Council President, when did this project became a priority? I think one of you mentioned that during the presentation.
I think in 2015. That's when we got a Brownfield grant to start this project. So it's been ongoing since then, for the past 10 years.
No more questions, Council President. Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions in regard to this item? Councilor Vivian Malmo? That is within your district.
So please bear with me, because any question that I ask, I would like the responses to be given to me as if you're explaining this to someone that has no understanding of anything that pertains to demolition, contamination, or how the city operates when dealing with these type of, scenarios. And if I'm saying something that is incorrect, please correct me. My understanding is that the city is trying to take out a loan in order for this demolition to happen. Is that yes or no?
A portion of it is a loan.
With that being said, has the city ever have gone this route when it comes to dealing with any other demolitions within the city?
Not for demolition in particular, because demolition, as I mentioned earlier, demolition is in a category typically in the EPA's budget, financing. They don't usually finance demolition. The only reason in this one occasion we were able to use it for demolition was because we couldn't adequately test the soil because the building's on it. The building's got a slab of concrete covering the area. We have to remove the building to go into the soil and test it.
So, and again, please don't judge me. In previous occasions, when it comes to demolishing contaminated buildings, if we haven't gone through the process of, having to use a loan to do it, why are we doing it with this property?
We have used the loan fund in the past for environmental projects. We recently did it on Tomborello. We had received a grant of, I believe, a $500,000 to remediate a certain hotspot in the project. When the bids came back, the lowest bid was, I think, $575,000. So we used $500,000 from the EPA funding, and then we went back to EPA, and they gave us a loan through the revolving loan fund, similar to this one. So a portion of that would be a grant, and a portion of that would be a loan. As I mentioned earlier, the loan conditions are very favorable.
Councilor Malmo, before you continue, let me just piggyback on what he said, and potentially ask you a question. What was the source of funds that the city used to demo the paper mill?
What's that?
The paper mill.
The paper mill? That was used through a mass development grant, and that money is actually, portion of that money is reimbursable based upon the final outcome of that project. So if the city, and what the city hopes to do, is develop that project into a very, a good development for the city that we'd like to see, and if it's profitable, we would owe Mass Development that $1.5 million or a portion of it, depending on, there's certain conditions set up. It's not dollar for dollar, but,
Understood.
but yeah. So a lot of these grants are like that, because they're economic development as much as environmental.
Councilor Mamo?
Looking at the map, I'm able to see Florence Street, West Street, and I'm able to see the different properties that are adjacent to the contaminated site. Some which say residential, some say lot. Though the 5 Florence Street says vacant, what does that mean?
There's nothing on it. It's vacant. There's a vacant lot. There's no building. There's no parking lot or anything.
There's no building?
Yeah.
It's just land?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
I can't read that, but
Essentially, it looked vacant, but when you go there, you find a lot of cars.
yeah.
Cars and vehicles, and then you
Yeah.
see the building on the other side.
Vehicles aren't go into the if there's no building on it, it's vacant.
Yeah.
And just to have just closing remarks in terms of my concern is, it's the fact that we're potentially opening the door for any future contaminated sites that the city is working to remediate. The resources or the funding that the city has to take on in order to make, in order for us to successfully demolish these properties. I'm just trying to make sure that we have a clear understanding as to what is the city's plan when it comes to demolishing, and is this the future when it comes to any future, any other properties that are contaminated? Is this going to be the normal protocol, or does it vary depending on the gravity of the contamination or the size of the property in terms of how we plan on funding in order to demolish it?
I think those are all good questions. I think those are all functions of what we would look in and assess in it. For instance, if we had a property, small property, that if it was clean would be worth $25,000, we wouldn't spend $25 million to clean that, to sell it for $25,000. If it was a problem that was an environmental issue contaminating the neighborhood and could affect our children, then yes, then we go after that and say, part of the problem when we're funding these projects is the federal government and the state government, they work in big numbers and in round numbers. So we get a grant for $500,000 for Tomborello. Well, not every project costs exactly $500,000. So sometimes, like in the case we had, it was $575,000. Sometimes it's less. In this case, our old engineer had thought that the demolition would be about $250,000 was his estimation. The bid actually came back at $208,000, so we're actually saving money. So that's money that we won't have to borrow from the commission. And they said the first $101,000 of that is a grant, so that we don't have to pay that. But again, yes, sometimes it's a chore. Merrimack paper that the council president brought up, we had to use funding from several different sources. We have $500,000 from EPA for that site. That was the maximum grant they would provide back in 2022. Now they're going up to $1 million and $2 million. But then we were able to get money from a program called MassWorks, and then we were finally able to get $1.5 million from the Mass Development Funds for Economic Development. That money was used strictly for the demolition of the building. And once the building's down, now we go down to use the EPA funding to clean up the site, because there's PCBs in that, and there's oil in that soil. So we have to then make an assessment about which we can target with that money, because it's still only $500,000, and the cleanup might cost $1 million or more. But we're working through that now. So those are the type of things we don't know. When we take this building down, we're not going to know how contaminated it is until our remediators, our engineers go in there and start testing it. And there could be a large pool of oil down there that's gonna cost a lot of money, because all that soil has to be taken out and shipped away, or it could be very minor. We don't know that yet, but that's what the EPA wants, is us to figure that out. And the only way you can figure that out is to take that building down.
I actually have one other question.
Councilor Marmo.
And again, excuse me if this question is
Just go ahead.
dumb.
No questions. Those are great questions.
So, let's pretend that the demolition has already happened. Does any potential developers that want to purchase this property incur the loan, fees, the balance, or a certain portion of what is owed?
Councilor Councilor Marmo. Once we get to that point, as we are going to be in charge of developing the RFP, we can actually include portion of those within the condition of the sale of that property.
I asked that question because I feel like that could make or break, potentially amongst us counselors, that could make or break on how we decide.
Yeah.
That could potentially be the determining factor on some of us saying yes or no to this project.
No, definitely. I mean, that's something that is fair. I mean, we represent the best interests of the city, and that's a fair question once we get to that point. But we are not yet at that point, but that's a potential of actually include that as a condition of the sale. And then we need to develop an RFP, and within that RFP, it's going to be a whole process that is going to be in compliance to Chapter 30B. That's how it is. But I mean, those are great questions. Thank you for asking. Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, through you. And before I ask the question, I heard that Mr. McCarthy said that if the land costs $25,000, we're not going to spend $500,000 cleaning it. So that's a good thing there. Question, Mr. McCarthy. So if in 2015 this become a priority, why it took so long to get it demolished now?
So I provided you some of the documents. In 2015, we hired Novus Engineering. They did what's called a phase one, which is a background study. Then they went in and did ground sensor testing to see if there's any, and they removed, I think they removed at least one U.S. underground storage tank. Then they were able to go through they filed what's called a quality assurance plan with DEP that says in a work plan for how to attack this. When we get to what's called a phase two, where they went down and started testing all the areas to see what the scope of the problem was. And the scope outside of 9 to 11, the scope didn't appear to be that bad as the other ones, but 9 to 11 appeared to be heavily contaminated. At that point, the final work plan, I think, was in 2020, and they came up with certain recommendations. One of them was the need to demolish this building. And at that time, we didn't have the funding to demolish it, and so the building sat there until we were able to do this. 2022, we became available with this funding source, and we immediately went down and inquired about getting that, and the administration will follow very, closely on that. And this was the last remaining petroleum funds that the EPA had for this portion of New England, and we were able to acquire that.
Thank you.
Council President.
Councilor Luzon.
So you said that the city acquired this property, but you didn't mention the year.
2010.
2010, okay. Do we know the owners from 2010? Do you know who owned that? Well, who owned, let me finish that. Who was, do you recall who was the owner, not the owner of that site, the owner around the site?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I mean, part of it's a street, part of it's a public way that we own. And then there's Dunkin' Donuts is in the behind, and there's a condominium on the side of it, and that there was a vacant lot.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yeah.
to you, Council President. Me that you don't recall who owns the property next to this, the property that we are discussing.
Currently, I do, yes.
You mind sharing with us?
Oneida Aquino,
Okay, who else? Who owned it before Oneida Aquino?
City of Lawrence.
And who else, do we know any other name of the owners around that area? It's only Mrs. Aquino?
There is a automotive garage owned by a Mr. Chaco. There is a 10-unit building owned by, I can't think of the person's name. On the north side of it, there's a couple of buildings that were developed by, I think Kenneth Dare, as a construction property, and they might have been sold. Then there's a condominium development also to the north, and then to the east, towards Broadway, is the Dunkin' Donuts project, and I believe that's owned by Mr. DePena.
Through you, Council President, Mayor Brian DePena. Is that what you
Well,
refer to as
it's-
Mr. DePena?
It is owned by...
Mr. Mayor
it is
Brian
owned- no,
DePena.
It is owned by a Realty Trust or LLC. The principal of that, I believe, is Brian DePena.
Mayor Brian DePena.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
So we're clear on that. Any other questions, councilors? All right, we have an item in front of us that is, I'm gonna repeat the item again, which is the authorization to spend funds of 286,000, MBPC revolving loan fund, demolition Florence Street Garage, city-owned property. I have a quick question before we continue. So, it says that we are authorizing to spend funds. Do we have to authorize the loan first? Because
Do we have to, excuse me?
to authorize the loan for the amount, because it's kind of the wording is tricky. We don't have these funds. We don't have the money, so we need to ask for loan authorization to be authorized first for the amount of the loan. I mean, procedure-wise, I'm thinking through.
I think, Mr. Whitten probably can speak to that better than I can.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, procedurally, I mean, we have a grant, which is we can authorize to spend that grant. But then we have a loan, which is we need to have a loan authorization for the city to go ahead and proceed with the loan. So it's like a little tricky. It should be really two portions of the items
Sure. and
treated
I'm not as
separately.
familiar with the city council process. To that extent, you might also want to authorize receipt of the grant from us.
Yeah, that's basically when we have the authorization to spend, it's because the city received it, and then you go through city council, and we authorize the expenditure of it. So do we receive the $101,000? Do we have the authorization? Yes, the city have the okay to spend that money.
You've gotten the authorization from
Okay.
our end, but you've not received the funds.
No. We're not gonna, we just the authorization. And then the council is the vote in favor of spending that grant. So, but with what we have in front of us is a grant and a loan together. So when we actually authorize a loan order, we need to do a what he calls a resolution to be able to go ahead and get those funds. And for that, we need a specific amount of vote. We need a supermajority vote, which is 6 vote, to authorize a loan. But for the loan authorization, for the grant authorization, for this, the authorization to spend, we only need 5 votes. So it's a little tricky. So it's a little different, right? So.
Do you want to take it in pieces? Is that-
I think that to be safe, if we're gonna take a vote today, I think that we should be safe and take it as in 2 portion, authorizing the loan, authorizing the loan, and be able and then also to spend the funds to a specific amount.
And perhaps receive the.
And that way we save at least. I mean, just thinking through the process. Am I right, Clay?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, let's split it on two, and then we can go and be safe on both. Councilor Rosario.
Council President, through you, but what would happen if, let's say, we authorize to spend the grant and then we deny the loan?
No, the project is not going through.
So I can address your question, Counselor. The way that EPA structures these funds when we apply for them is they mandate that at the end of the day, all of our funds have to have a 60-40 loan and grant breakdown.
Yeah.
And so any agreement that we enter into with a community to provide funds, we try and maintain that 60-40. So that's why a portion of this will be grant funds and then a portion would be the loan funds. If the city opted not to take out the loan, we wouldn't be able to make the grant happen. So it's a sort of package deal from EPA. Does that address your question, Councilor? Okay.
The agreement that we have with MVPC, the specific amount is $286,000. For the, excuse me? The grant, I believe, was 101,000, and there was 185,000 loan. Yeah, 101,000 is the grant. Exactly.
Motion to go past 10.
Second.
Aye. Aye.
Council
Or-
President, question.
Councilor Luzon.
What will happen if we approve half, like, if we approve receiving the grant?
He just actually clarified that.
So,
Miss it. I
so
miss it.
You just haven't said that again.
Sure. Counselor, the way that the program is structured from EPA is any funds that we loan out have to be a 60-40 split
Yeah, that-
between loan and grant. So if the council chooses to accept the grant portion but not the loan, we wouldn't be able to dole those funds. That's an EPA rule, that's not our rule. Yeah.
I got you.
Thank you for repeating that. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
Right.
Sure.
So the loan authorization, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have enough councilors. The loan authorization for 185,000, which is item 394B, that for MBPC PA revolving loan funds, councilors, we're just taking this vote just to be safe and make sure that we go through. So can I get a motion to approve item 394B?
So move.
There's a motion on the table, properly second. Any discussions on this? This is for the loan authorization. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Marmol.
Yes.
Councilor Santiago,
No.
Councilor Del Rosario,
Yes.
Council Luzon.
No.
Council Vice President Infante,
Yes.
Council President.
I vote yes. If it is a long authorization, this is, we need six votes.
You don't have it. You
We don't have
five.
it, motion fails. Councilors, with that said, the project is not gonna go through. It could be a motion to reconsider at any point during this meeting or the next meeting. Councilors, let's go with item 394B, 394A, which is $101,000 grant fund. Can you get a motion to approve item 394A?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the table, properly second discussion. Councilor Rosario.
To be honest, what would be the purpose of voting on this if we already
We
destroyed the project?
can reconsider eventually. Let's do what we actually plan on doing. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
A roll call, please.
Councilor Luzon. No. Councilor Del Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Santiago.
Yes.
Councilor Mamo.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council Vice President Infante.
Yes.
Council President Rodriguez.
Yes. Motion carries. What was the count?
7-1, 6-1.
6-1? All right, councilors, at any point during this meeting, we can reconsider the vote on the Pavilion side, which is Councilor Luzon or Councilor Fidelina Santiago to reconsider the vote.
For law, my vote is saying no. For grant is yes.
If your vote is no, I understand, but the project is not going through with the grant. That's what he explained a minute ago.
And I just want to point out that in all the grants that we get, the majority of them have what's called a match, which means the city has to come up with a percentage of that project. So sometimes it's 20%, a lot of them are 50%, where we get a 50% grant from some agency, and the city has to come up with $50,000 out of its own pocket, and we have to pay that currently. The way most grants work is they're called reimbursement grants. So the city has funding and leverage to expend their own funds, and then we're reimbursed by the agency when that's done. I'd say 90% of our grants are reimbursement types. So that's how when we build our streets, when we do the schools, when we do a lot of these things, that's how the projects are run, and we go through forward. And the city's required to come up with a certain amount of that. So that's why I think EPA sets it up with a 60-40 balance, is so that, as the old saying says, you have some skin in the game, that the city is responsible. The fact that it's a very favorable loan at low interest that's not even payable for several years is a great advantage to the city. It's actually better than spending some current funds, like we could use our ARPA fund money maybe to reinforce this. But that money can be used for better things now rather than on this project. So, yeah, it's putting some debt down the road, but in the long run, on the financial side, it's to the benefit of the city to take advantage of the loan. So, I would strongly encourage to think about the project.
And also, it is important to recognize that this property, I represent this area for quite some time, independently of what the city is going to do with it.
Yeah.
Getting it clean, it will be essential for the area.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
And more importantly, we have a process for this position, and a strong process that we can set up the request for proposal. Having the request for proposal in our hands, approving the disposition of this property or the surplus declaration with the intent of setting that loan as part of the disposition process, we might end up having a situation that developers feel okay with it, paying the loan back.
Council
But I
President.
mean, at least we have that opportunity.
Council President?
Councilor Del
And
Rosario.
and I just want to point out, and I know that several of you, you've gone down and seen the site and seen the building. There are portions of that building that are collapsing, and it's becoming dangerous. We've had this long-term problem with the homelessness. They look for anywhere they can go into to find some way. We've locked this building up tight, chains, fencing, everything. They still find ways to get in there. So it is really a hazard to the community and the people who live in that neighborhood having that building there. So it's not just the idea of redeveloping this area. It's the intent of the city is to remove a dangerous building from that community.
No, and more importantly, the amount of homeless that are inside, and if the building collapse, it could be a tragedy.
Council President.
Councilor Del Rosario.
And I was gonna touch that you just said, Mr. McCarthy, something could happen and that building can come down. But I want my colleagues to know that once we demolish that, if we ever do, we clean it up, we still have the power here at the city council, who we gonna sell that property to. It's not gonna go automatically to one bidder. It's not gonna automatically to one person. It comes to us and we decide who we wanna sell it to and how much we sell it for. But right now, if something happened in that building, the city will still have to pay and bring money out of his pocket. And also, we denying that area to eventually be developed and still be a ground field if we don't do it. But if something happened and that building collapse, it's out of our people's money that we're gonna have to clean up completely, the whole amount of money.
And
Council
more-
President,
Councilor Luzon?
you are making valid points. And I personally, I understand your concerns. But why, if the city has a project, a future project, because I know they are thinking of doing something in the future, why we don't get a complete plan? We're getting things by piece, by piece.
I
And
may
we are
be able
asking-
to answer that.
Council President,
Sure.
may I finish my point? If the intention of the city is to bring a developer, you can talk about that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, you keep bringing this plan pieces by pieces, creating more secrecy. I think if you come to us, I mean, to me as a counselor, with a plan, because we are investing money, knowing that you can find more contaminated site next to it, and I know the city's gonna be spending more money. So if you're doing all that, at least let us know that you have a plan for a developer. Because I know you're talking to people about this site. So what I'm asking here is for you to have more transparency. That's what I'm asking.
And I'll be frank with you, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of people are interested in city properties. I get calls every day. So there's several people who are expressing interest in it. The state has a procurement process that requires all city projects to go through this process. And it's evaluated, any project that doesn't meet the standards of the state will go to the Inspector General's office for review. The biggest issue with this project is it's a brownfield. And we don't know how much the cleanup is gonna be after the demolition is done. So that is that's gonna take time. And we're not gonna make any determinations until that assessment is done and we know what there are certain limitations that the EPA and the DEP will come back and tell us. If we clean it up to a certain point, they may not allow any type of residential development. They'll say it has to be commercial. You can't make it into a ball field because unless you cap it. So there are guidelines by DEP and EPA who oversee this entire process. And again, then when the project is clean and we get a green light from those agencies, we then have to go through the state procurement process.
Through you, Councilor Luzon, which is the Chapter 30B we are very, 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 very caution about that. When it comes to property being, doing a disposition to a property, I have fight those big time, and I'm never gonna stop if I see something wrong. What I'm saying is, before we get procedure-wise, we cannot have any project in front of us. We can't. Even though there is an intent of giving this property to somebody, we can't entertain a discussion at all on any particular property because we don't have an item for disposition. The first thing we need to do is a surplus declaration, and then a disposition, and then if it is a specific restriction based on the cleaning portion of it, which going to mandate the cleaning portion of it, it's going to mandate any type of development there. It could be that we desire to have housing, or we desire to do any type of other business. The cleaning operation is the one that is going to decide eventually what's going to go there.
Council President,
Council
if I
Pres-
may, I'm, Council
Council Luzon?
President, I'm very familiar with the process, and I understand it, I'm familiar. What I'm trying to explain, I'm saying that, I know that the city has plans. I'm not asking to have developers here talking to us. So what is the long-term plan of the city for those sites? Because we are investing, and I know the safety concern that we have, that the council have, some of you have. I know that. But I also know that there's more contaminated area there. So at least if they can come to us, explain, and they can tell us, here is a future plan for the site. I don't want to meet the developers. I don't want to do that. I just want to know what is the plan for the site, for all the sites that are there. And you explain it beautifully, your explanation, but we also know that they are talking to developers. So let's be honest here.
Yeah,
They know what they want. They know what they want. I don't want to meet developers. I want to know what is the plan, what is the plan that the city has? Because it's not going to be just this site. I know there's going to be more contamination next to it, based on the history of the people that have leased the space, according to Mr. McCarthy. Thank you,
No,
President.
Councilor Plon, I understand exactly what you're coming from.
Council President.
Councilor Santiago?
Yes. When they were talking to consider my vote, they was putting a little pressure about the safety and about the building if something happened, something like that. And can you tell me right now what sign said it is really dangerous have the property? What sign? Which sign, has the property right now? Because if it's really dangerous, have to.
So we have no trespassing signs. We've locked up the building tight. If you see near the top of the building, there's a crack on one portion, and bricks are starting to fall out. My concern would be more than somebody getting in the building. Might be children playing in the area where they shouldn't be, and a wall collapses on and hurts some children. More so than with the homeless going in and something happens. It's a liability issue for the city. I was a child growing up in Lawrence, and we used to play in the old mills as children. And these buildings are attractive nuisances, they call them. You know, they go in there when they shouldn't be in there and they play. We have it locked up as tight as we can, fences, locks, signs, do not enter. And we do the best we can. And we make sure that the police department drives down there to make sure nothing's going on there on a regular basis. The neighbors are all involved in this, and they keep us called because they're interested in the property as well. A lot of the people who live down there, who own homes down there, have no parking.
Another
And they
thing.
express that. So these are issues that we'll look at in total when we know what the property can be used for.
Yes.
Another thing that it is important to recognize that there is interest people on this property, a lot of people. Since 2015 that I'm on the council, I hear people that want to develop the building. The development is going to depend on the contaminants that we have there and the type of contamination that we actually can keep in there without actually having to remove it.
Right.
But it is also important to recognize that the Chapter 30B, when it comes to disposition of a property over $35,000, doesn't call to benefit the abutters. Doesn't call to benefit the abutters. The abutters are going to be just as normal as anybody else. They're going to have to bring a proposal that the city will make a determination whether or not they are beneficial for the city. And that proposal is going to be ultimately in compliance with the contaminants that we have in ground that we're not able to remove. If we keep on removing things from there, we're never going to finish. I deal with that on a daily basis, and there is so many things that we can take out. A pile of dirt, it cost me thousands of dollars to remove out of my project that I'm working currently. So it's like it is a give and take when it comes to this type of building that are contaminant and the potential development that is going to be in the future. So I just want to make sure that we all aware that there is an opportunity here to actually demolish this building and potentially use that partial fund from that $1 million to remove the contaminants on the mitigation of the site. We have a source of fund already secured, which is the $1 million that we're going to be accepting in 2 weeks. And that's important to also take advantage of for the benefit of the area, independently of what's going to happen down on that location eventually. Councilor Rosario.
And then to piggyback with that and to address some of the concern that Councilor Luzon has, until we clean it up, demolish and clean it up, they cannot bring a project in front of us regardless of what they have on their mind. And at the end of the day, we will take the decision of who is going to build whatever they're going to build in there. And it's going to have we're going to put in our condition to come in with the price of what is going to be built there. I mean, when it comes to what kind of contamination do we have. But until we start this, we demolish this building, we don't even know. I mean, they cannot bring, regardless if they have something in their head, they cannot bring us a plan right now without removing that building.
If it is any reconsideration of the vote for item 394B for the loan authorization of $108,000, this is the time. Otherwise, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to move forward from this item. Good. Okay. Huh?
So, President,
Councilor,
can we table the item?
No, before we can table it, but we need to take a motion to reconsider, and then we're gonna have this item back like it never happened, nothing happened before. So if it is a motion to reconsider, we can bring it back and potentially table it if the council decide to. So, but before, the first thing that needs to happen is a motion to reconsider for the Pavilion side, and in this case, the Pavilion side is Councilor Luzon and Councilor Santiago. If it is a motion to reconsider, potentially we can table. Otherwise, we're not going to have an opportunity to do this project.
Council President, or maybe Madam Clerk, so if one of us reconsider the item, it doesn't get approved?
No.
No?
Motion to reconsider will open the floor again to as we never voted before. Correct? It's a motion to reconsider.
Yeah, You would have to, there was a motion to reconsider, then a second motion to either approve.
To either
deny.
approve, table, denied, or whatever that comes to the side. It could be a motion to table. That's in order.
I mean, looking at the current stalemate, rather than go to a vote, it'd be preferable to table the matter, rather than have this defeated tonight.
Okay. So there is a motion to reconsider, or there is any other motion? All right, I'll move forward. Councilor, this item has died. Thank you so much.
Can reconsider at the next meeting.
We could be a possibility that we can reconsider the next meeting. But for that, we're gonna have to suspend the rules and do other things. All right, item 2, 420.
Excuse me, just to be clear, so the item was defeated, correct?
To this point, yes, the item is defeated. There is other things that we can do next meeting, but I mean, at this point, the item is defeated. Item 42624, which is the authorization to spend grant. Oh, before we continue, any of the councilors that wishes to reconsider the vote for any matters could be done within the same meeting before we adjourn. It's not at the time of the item. It could be before we adjourn the meeting. Okay, item 42624, which is the authorization to spend $2,500 grant for the Wall Point. We have an item on the new business, Councilor, that we would like to discuss, if possible, tonight, and due to a couple of situations that we have in front of us. And this is item 42624, which is the authorization to spend $2,500 grant for the Wall Point Health Insurance. Adderley Gonzalez, which is the recreation director, is here. And the intent is that this money will be used for the purchase of bicycles for the Ciclovia that is going to take place on the 22nd of this month. And this is, we need, for us to be able to do this, we need to take a motion to declare this as an emergency, and for that we need 6 votes, and then we need to suspend the rules, eventually not to refer to a committee, and eventually take a vote at this level. Councilors, if we decide to declare this as an emergency, this is for the purpose of purchasing bikes for the Ciclovia and give it out to the kids. Ciclovia, the second Ciclovia date is going to be on September 22nd. Councilors, if we want to declare this an emergency, this is the opportunity.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion to declare this item as an emergency, properly second discussion on the emergency portion of it.
Discussion.
Councilor LaPlante?
Thank you.
For the true benefit of the community.
Clearly. So I always ask this question. So we're having a meeting on the 17th, right?
We do. No, the Ciclovia is on the 22nd. They changed the date.
So if it's coming up.
But they need to purchase stuff and do all the things.
Tell me the credit card doesn't work after the 18th?
They need to exchange the check and make the check and this and that.
Actually, Ciclovia was supposed to be this Sunday, so it was supposed to be an emergency meeting to buy the bikes and then transfer the funds. So what's happening is Wellpoint is sponsoring the bikes, and they were supposed to give us the bikes, but they kind of work like us, like a city entity, so they're gonna give us, we gotta send them a W-9, that whole process to buy the bikes, so.
So are you suggesting that if we had the meeting on the 17th, that wouldn't give you enough time after that to get this done?
I know.
That's my question. Because you're asking for an emergency, which should be an incredibly rare thing, which should be. And it's not, but it should be. So the question is, if we don't, and you go through the normal business, we have a meeting on the 17th and we approve it, hypothetically, would the next day, would that give you enough time to get the stuff done?
No.
No, probably not. No.
Let's be safe, people. There is a motion to declare this an emergency. Discussion, Councilor Santiago.
Yes. I don't have any problem with this because it's for the community, it's healthy, but I enjoy it a lot. You saw me. But can you explain me why you have to do it twice?
The ciclovía?
Yeah.
Because we want to enjoy it.
I think that's
You
throw
gotta
the
do it
money.
every month.
That's money given for that. It's not from the city.
Yeah,
gotta do
but
ciclovía every
in one
month.
event, they're supposed to use the money. Because I haven't participated around 8 years. I can show you the picture. And I saw the difference, how this activity, it is changing. And I saw a big difference the last one. A lot of things missing, and a lot of people was asking me about the tricycle, something like that.
Oh,
We
nice.
didn't have it, and and in a lot of activities, and different, maybe gift for the community, bikes, different raffle, and you, maybe not you, but the organization separate the activity to make twice, and that's why I say, why to do twice if you can spend the money in the one time?
So to answer your question, Ciclovia is actually split in two. So the Mayor's Health Task Force ran the first Ciclovia. This second Ciclovia is ran by the Recreation Department in the center. So it's two different, entities and two different departments. When it comes to the Mayor's Health Task Force, I don't know the budget that they have compared to the budget that the center and the Recreation Department we put together for that. We are bringing the bicycles that you're talking about. We are bringing carnival games and other things for our Ciclovia coming up because we have more time to plan, and like I said, we have a different budget. So that's why things seem a little bit different. But usually the goal is to have at least one Ciclovia, like the City Council President said. It's for the community, so everybody can come to Estes Street, go to the different businesses, have fun, walk. The whole purpose is to exercise and be active.
All right, yeah. Well, we have a motion to declare this as an emergency. Any other questions in regard to the emergency portion of it? I hear none, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Now, councilors, we need to suspend the rule not to send this item to a committee and be able to treat it here. Can I get a motion to suspend the rules to avoid sending it to a committee?
So move.
There is a motion on the table to suspend the rules, properly second. All those in favor, any discussion? I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Now, councilors, we be able to discuss this item at this level. It's a matter of
Motion to approve?
Second.
entertaining a motion. The motion is in order, properly second discussions to authorize the expenditure of these $2,500 for that Ciclovia coming up on the 22nd. Any discussion? I hear none, so at this point I call the question. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Guys, have it. Thank you so much. Alrighty, we have a couple of things. We have new business. New business, we have item 41224, which is the extension of the 90 days temporary appointment for the police chief, Melix Bonilla. This is going to the personnel committee. Now we have item 41324, the authorization to spend $1 million EPA multipurpose grant funds. That was what we discussed in before, the potential funds. This is going to the Budget and Finance Committee. Item 41424, which is the authorization to spend $664,000 lead service lines, inventories, and replacement plan grants. This is going to the Budget and Finance Committee. Item 41524, which is the authorization to spend $1,601,840 MVP Stormwater Reliance Grant. This is going to the Budget and Finance Committee. Item 416, surplus declaration of the city property on Mount Auburn Street. This is going to the Housing Committee. Item 41724, the removal of handicap parking space, ordinance deletions at Florence Ave. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. Item 41824, removal of handicap parking at 400 Bellow Street. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. 41924, pink blazers by the Lynette, September 28, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is going to the Companion Common. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. 42024, childcare parking signage at 159 High Street. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. Item 42124, which is childcare parking signage at 46 Bennington Street. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. Item 422. Okay. Item 42324, which is resident parking at Trimmer Street and near Hampshire Street. This is going to the Ordinance Committee. We discussed item 42424. Item 42524, which is the resident parking at Alvin Street from Avon to
Council President.
Avon Street, Councilor Luzon.
It's not the entire street, it's just it's one side of the street, where the street ends.
Okay, so do you want to meet with Officer Cano to clarify a little more?
Yes, well,
And
thank you.
then and send that information over to the Ordinance Committee?
Yes, please,
Is that
thank you.
referred to? So this item, we're gonna go to the Ordinance Committee. Item 42624, we discussed this and approve. So now, councilors, we need the committee assignments. The Ordinance Committee, when it's gonna be the Ordinance Committee?
Tuesday at 7.
Tuesday at 7, next Tuesday. Budget and Finance Committee, Madam Vice President Infante.
Wednesday at 7.
Personnel Committee,
Wednesday at 6:30.
Housing,
Wednesday at 6.
Public Safety, Public Safety, Public Safety. So you good on Public Safety? We good on Public Safety? Economic Development? Economic Development? No meeting for now? I mean, it's up to you. We can plan one up and then, or we can have a date. Plan it up for the next meeting?
Yes.
All right, so we have all the dates already? Councilor, before we adjourn, any,
For September 11, there's no.
In the morning. In the morning.
yes, on September 11, there's always every year a memorial ceremony at that, ladder 4, at the South Lawrence firefighter station, ladder 4.
That's
So we will be receiving that information.
We already have it, Council President.
It's
from
on the-
9.
it's on the calendar,
It's-
okay.
It's from 9 to 12.
Yeah, I have seen it, but I mean, just don't remember. Councilors, anything before we adjourn? Huh?
Council Del Rosario usually makes that motion at this time.
Motion to adjourn? There's a motion to adjourn? Can I hear a second? Properly second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.